Well, Rockford firefighters are finishing up at the scene of a fire at a storage facility on Rockford's northwest side. And several fire departments were called to the scene, and there was concern about some flammable oils and other chemicals found in the storage unit. This is behind Foltz Transmission on North Central Avenue, basically across the street from Cyril's Park. Crews are wrapping up there. A fire started around 3:45 this morning, and scanner traffic indicated smoke and flames were visible as they pulled up to the scene. There was a little issue getting water to that unit because where it was located in the storage facility, and North Central Avenue was closed for a few hours. That should be reopening soon as firefighters wrap up there. And this is a look at the scene of the fire here in one of the storage units. Now, the building division from the city of Rockford was called in to look at the stability of the multi-unit facility there to see what the situation is there and also examine some of the contents of that storage facility. But things are under control, and at this point we have no reports of any injuries in that fire earlier this morning just before 4 o'clock.